Small towns in America. That phrase brings up images to our minds right away. Maybe because we grew up there, or movies, television, books. They give us this concept of what small town life is like. Maybe 20th century, 21st century, where we're at right now. Small town life is very, very different than what small town life was like in the 18th century. If we want to get a glimpse of what that was like, and I think there's a lot to learn, well, we have to dig into some source material. One of the best places we can go are diaries and daybooks of that time period. A great one here is Matthew Patten's diary. He's in Bedford, New Hampshire, 1754 through 1788. He keeps this book. It gives us an idea about the work he's doing, the kinds of commercial transactions he's having, the people he's interacting with, his problems, etc. Also, same time period and same kind of place in America is Martha Ballard's diary. Kind of takes up from where this one leaves off in a sense, because hers is 1786 through 1812. So we get, again, what life is like just a little bit later, and also from a woman's point of view. A big difference there, but again, we've got some themes throughout these two diaries that just connect together so well that it's really amazing comparing that time to this time. And I think if I'm going to pick anything out that's the big, big difference, it has to do with how the people in town interact with each other. In the 20th and especially now in the 21st century, most small towns are just bedroom communities for larger cities. People don't want to live in the big city, or maybe it's too expensive. They live just outside of town in small towns, and then they commute back and forth. That's great, but that small town then is really, it's not living anymore. It just happens to be where different people, go to sleep, but it's not where there is community. It's not really what's known as a town, especially in the 18th century sense. The people in the community of small town in America in the 18th century, they had to live together tightly interwoven. They had to rely on one another for everything, really, everything. So if we look at Matthew Patten's diary, we see him having commercial interactions with all of his neighbors, basically everyone around town, and it almost seems very, very purposeful that he wants to connect with each and every person, because he knows he might have to rely on any of these people, so he wants to make sure he uses the services of all the different people. If there is more than one grain mill in town, he's going to use both of those grain mills. He's going to make sure to order flour from both of those different ones. He needs them both to be in business, because one may not work and he needs to go to the other one. If there are multiple stores in town, a place where he needs to go and shop to order different things, pick up different items, he's going to be doing business with all of them. A little business here, a little business there. Matthew Patten he's using all of his neighbors for different kinds of food. So he will purchase things or sell things to each one of his neighbors, sort of in turn, as a sense. So they're always relying on him, and he's always relying on them. And not just buying things, but he's also borrowing things, borrowing equipment, sometimes borrowing food, and borrowing money. And the same thing happens to him. So the same interactions are happening in the other direction. People are borrowing his labor, borrowing his equipment, oxen at times, and money from him. So he'll write many times in this, I borrowed my neighbor's horse. He never seems to have a horse. I borrowed my neighbor's horse and I went to this town or that town. I borrowed money from somebody when I was there, or I paid back money that I had borrowed at some point. I came back through, I bought two bushels of rye or corn, and then he went to some mill and he had that milled and he brought the flour home. These kinds of transactions are just constant and with this huge variety of names. So that whole small town is so tightly interwoven. If any strand breaks, there's some kind of problem. If I can't get this particular thing from that person, I have to start worrying. I need to make sure to take care of them. So you also see sort of charity happening, or different circumstances where he's dealing with his neighbors, maybe in a little more kindly way than he might. There was one reading in here where his neighbors' hogs, pigs, get out and they damage his crops, and he captures them and he takes them back, and he kind of scolds his neighbor a little bit, but he does not ask for reimbursement for the damaged crops. And he mentions it. It's like, I didn't bother to ask him for any reimbursement. So there are certainly times when he's dealing with his neighbors and he's doing things for free for them, and then other times he's being very particular about making the accounts. And he also has partnerships with some of his neighbors. So he has a fish trap with 3 or 4 different people, and they have to share what comes out of the fish trap. Sometimes he just sort of gives the fish away to particular people at particular times. But watching the interactions is something that, well, I don't know. I've never lived in a small town like that, where people are just so particular about making sure to interact with each and every one of their neighbors in the way that they're capable of interacting. So, if they've got something that I could possibly use, I would interact with them and make sure to use that thing on purpose to help support them, knowing that they're going to help support me. That's the kind of community that we should also strive to live within. That's not easy to do. They had to live in that sort of a situation. That was survival. They had no other way to live. Today, we don't need our neighbor as much, do we? We order all sorts of things. We can go to the city. We can, drive miles, hours away easily without any difficulty, purchase any items we need, or we can just sit in our own homes, use a computer, order something that'll come from 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, or half a world away. And it's an amazing world to live in. But it also disconnects us from our community. It does us a disservice. Yes, it's wonderful, and I wouldn't want to live in a world without that. But it also damages my need to interact with my neighbor. Something that we could probably use more of. It's really amazing to dig in to these diaries and understand how important community was in that time. They couldn't survive without it. And undoubtedly, there'll be a time in our future where we can't survive without it. We need to learn those clues and those skills. It's easy enough maybe to learn the skill, like, learn about blacksmithing or woodworking. But we can all take a lesson in community building. Thanks for coming along with me as we try to step into the shoes of people from the 18th century and learn just a little bit. Yeah, those shoes, they aren't as comfortable, but there's a lot to learn there. So thanks for watching today.